Early one morning, the village was quiet and calm. Birds moved across the sky, and the soft wind passed through small trees near the houses. A man named Aman opened the wooden door of his home and stepped outside. He was a simple man who lived a simple life. His house stood near an empty open land where nothing special had ever happened before. Aman planned to clean the front yard and then leave for work. He looked down to check the ground, and suddenly his body stopped moving. His eyes widened, and his breath slowed. Right in front of his house was a massive hole in the ground. It was wide and deep, far bigger than anything he had ever seen. The edges were rough, and the soil around it looked freshly broken. For a few moments, Aman could not move. His mind tried to understand what his eyes were seeing. He had walked through this place every day. The ground had always been flat and strong. There had been no heavy rain, no storm, and no noise during the night. Yet the hole was there, silent and dark. Aman took a careful step back. His heart beat faster as fear slowly entered his chest. He looked around to see if anyone else was watching. The nearby houses were still closed. No one else seemed to know what had happened. The hole looked like it had appeared only for him to see. He picked up a small stone from the ground. His hand shook slightly as he dropped it into the hole. The stone fell for a long time before a faint sound came back. That sound made the hole feel even deeper than it looked. Aman swallowed hard. This was not normal. He walked inside his house and drank some water to calm himself. His hands were still shaking. He tried to think of logical reasons. Maybe the ground was weak. Maybe something underground collapsed. But no matter how much he thought, none of the answers felt right. Aman went back outside and stood at a safe distance. The hole looked darker now as the sun moved higher. Shadows covered the inside, hiding whatever was below. He felt a strange pull, like the hole wanted him to come closer. He resisted that feeling. Soon, his neighbor Ravi walked out of his house and noticed Aman standing still. Ravi followed his gaze and gasped. He ran closer but stopped when Aman raised his hand. "Do not come near," Aman said calmly but firmly. Ravi stared at the hole with fear and surprise. He asked many questions, but Aman had no answers. Within minutes, more neighbors arrived. Word spread quickly. People gathered, whispering and pointing. Some stood in silence. Others took photos with their phones. No one remembered hearing any sound during the night. No shaking. No warning. It was as if the ground had opened quietly while everyone slept. An elder from the village suggested calling local officials. Another warned people to stay back. The crowd grew larger, and so did the tension. Children were pulled away. Everyone felt uneasy standing near something they could not explain. Aman stood among them, feeling both scared and responsible. The hole was in front of his house. Whatever happened next would change his life forever. He felt eyes on him from every direction. Some people asked if he knew more. Some wondered if his land was unsafe. By noon, officials arrived with safety tape and tools. They marked the area and asked everyone to move back. One officer questioned Aman carefully. Aman told the truth. He had seen the hole in the morning. He heard nothing at night. He touched nothing. The officials examined the hole closely. They measured its width and tried to estimate its depth. Their faces showed confusion. This was not a common ground collapse. The soil layers looked strange. One officer said the ground beneath looked old and solid. Aman felt cold hearing that. Old ground did not collapse easily. A small camera was lowered into the hole using a rope. Everyone watched the screen closely. At first, only dirt and stone appeared. Then something unusual came into view. The walls looked smoother than expected. They were not random or broken. They looked shaped. The officers stopped the camera and pulled it back up. They spoke quietly among themselves. Their serious expressions made the crowd uneasy. One officer announced that the area would be closed for safety reasons. Further investigation would be done soon. People protested, but the decision was final. The crowd slowly dispersed, leaving Amon standing near his house, staring at the taped-off hole. That night, Amon sat inside his home with the lights off. He could not sleep. Every small sound made him alert. His mind kept returning to the hole. He felt fear, curiosity, and something else he could not name. He wondered what was hidden beneath his home. He wondered who had been there before him. He wondered why this happened now. Outside, the hole remained silent. It gave no answers. But Amon knew one thing for sure. Whatever was inside that hole was not ordinary. And soon, the whole country would want to know the truth. The next morning arrived with heavy silence. Amon opened his eyes after a restless night. He barely slept, and his thoughts stayed trapped in the image of the dark hole outside his house. As soon as the sun rose, he stepped outside again. The safety tape was still there, and 2 guards stood near the area. The hole looked the same, but the feeling around it was different. It felt serious now. People from nearby villages began arriving early. Some walked. Some came on bikes. Everyone wanted to see the strange hole with their own eyes. Amon stayed close to his house, watching quietly. He felt like a stranger in his own yard. Soon, a group of experts arrived in large vehicles. They wore helmets and carried equipment. Cameras followed them. News reporters spoke loudly, sharing updates with people watching from far away. The story had spread fast. What started as a quiet morning shock had now become a national topic. The experts spoke with officials and then moved toward the hole. They checked the ground around it and tested the soil. Amon watched their faces carefully. Some looked curious. Some looked confused. None of them looked calm. One expert suggested lowering a stronger camera with better light. The team prepared the equipment while everyone waited in silence. The camera slowly moved down into the hole. The screen showed clear images this time. The walls were not rough like broken soil. They were smooth and solid. As the camera went deeper, the images changed. Shapes appeared on the walls. They looked carved and planned. Straight lines and curves appeared, placed with care. The crowd gasped softly. This was no natural hole. Something had been built there. The experts asked for silence. They focused on the screen as the camera reached a wider space. The hole opened into a large underground area. The light showed a flat floor and strong stone walls. The space looked protected from time. Amon felt his legs weaken. He held onto the fence near his house. The ground under his feet suddenly felt unfamiliar. The place where he had lived for years was hiding something powerful. The experts pulled the camera back up. They spoke quietly among themselves. After a long discussion, one official made an announcement. The area would be fully secured. No one would be allowed near the hole. More specialists would arrive soon. The crowd reacted with mixed emotions. Some people were excited. Some were scared. Others were angry they could not see more. Reporters rushed to send updates. The story reached every corner of the country within hours. Amon was asked to speak briefly. He stood in front of cameras, nervous but honest. He said he was just a normal man who found something unexpected. He said he felt fear and wonder at the same time. His words touched many people. By afternoon, guards blocked all roads leading to the area. Signs were placed. The village felt like a different place. Amon's house stood behind tape and guards. His simple life had changed forever. That evening, officials came to speak with Amon privately. They told him that what was found underground could be very important. They asked him many questions about the land and his family history. Amon answered everything truthfully. His family had lived there for generations, but no stories were ever told about anything hidden below. Night fell slowly. Bright lights were set up around the hole. Security stayed alert. Aman sat inside his home, listening to the distant sound of vehicles and voices. He felt overwhelmed. He thought about how life could change in one day. Yesterday, he worried about daily work and small problems. Today, his home stood over a mystery that experts could not explain. Outside, the whole remained quiet. But Aman knew it was no longer just empty space. It was an entrance to something that waited a long time to be seen. Late at night, more experts arrived from the capital. They brought maps, machines, and plans. The investigation was about to go deeper. Aman lay down but did not sleep. His mind stayed alert. He wondered what the underground space truly was. Who built it? Why it was hidden? And why it appeared now? The answers were still below the ground. And soon, the world would begin to uncover them. Morning came with thick clouds covering the sky. The village felt tense, like it was holding its breath. Aman stood near his window and watched as more vehicles entered the area. The number of guards had increased. Metal barriers were placed near the hole, and bright lights stayed on even during the day. A special research team arrived early. These experts came from different fields. Some studied history. Some studied land and stone. Others focused on old symbols and structures. They worked together carefully, knowing that even a small mistake could damage something important. Before entering the hole, the team spent hours planning. They checked safety gear and tested air levels inside the underground space. The hole was widened slightly to allow safe movement. Strong steps were built along the side, leading down slowly into the darkness. Aman was not allowed to go inside, but he was permitted to watch from a safe distance. He stood quietly, his arms crossed, his mind full of questions. This hole had taken control of his life, yet he knew so little about it. The first group of experts began their descent. Lights moved down the steps, one by one, until they disappeared into the ground. Cameras followed them, sending live images to screens placed above. Everyone nearby gathered to watch. As the team reached the bottom, the underground space became clearer. It was larger than expected. The walls were made of solid stone, smooth and carefully shaped. There were no cracks or signs of damage. It looked as if the place had been protected from time itself. The experts walked slowly, scanning the walls. Symbols covered large sections of stone. They were not random marks. Each symbol was placed with purpose. Some looked like shapes from nature. Others looked like signs meant to carry meaning. One expert pointed to a long line carved into the wall. It stretched across the chamber like a guide. Another expert noticed stone markings near the floor that looked like steps or paths. Everything about the place showed planning and intelligence. In the center of the chamber stood several large stone boxes. They were arranged neatly, with equal space between them. Each box was sealed tightly. The surface of the boxes was smooth, with carved lines that matched the symbols on the walls. The team stopped and discussed their next move. They agreed to open only one box and examine it carefully. Tools were prepared, and the process began slowly. Everyone watching above stood still. When the stone lid was lifted, silence filled the air. Inside the box were objects placed in perfect order. There were tools made of metal and stone. There were flat pieces with markings that looked like records. Everything was clean and well preserved. The experts exchanged looks of shock. These items did not match what they expected from the area or time period. The designs showed skill and understanding far ahead of known history. Aman watched the screen closely. His heart felt heavy. The land beneath his home held knowledge older than his village, older than the stories passed down through families. He felt proud and frightened at the same time. The team took photos and measurements. They carefully removed only a few items for study. Everything else was left untouched. Respect for the place guided every action. Soon, word spread beyond the country. International researchers requested access. News channels from other regions began covering the story. The hole in front of Aman's house was now a global topic. Officials announced that the underground chamber would be protected as a historical site. No construction or changes would be allowed nearby. Amon was informed that his home would remain safe, but the land around it would be managed carefully. Amon listened quietly as officials explained the plans. He nodded and agreed. He knew this discovery was bigger than him. His personal comfort mattered less than protecting what was found. That evening, the village gathered again. This time, the fear was mixed with pride. People spoke about history, about the unknown people who built the chamber. Children listened closely, imagining life long before their own. Amon sat on a chair outside his house, watching the lights near the hole. He felt tired but alert. His life had turned into something he never expected. He thought about the people who built the chamber. They planned carefully. They worked with patience. They wanted something to last. And it did. The hole was no longer just a mystery. It was a message from the past. And the world had finally started to listen. Days passed, and the village no longer felt small or quiet. Every road leading to the area was busy from morning until night. Vehicles arrived carrying experts, workers, and officials. Tents were set up near the hole, and machines worked carefully without disturbing the land. The place had turned into a center of learning and discovery. Amon watched all of this from his doorway. He still woke up early every day, but his mornings were no longer peaceful. He saw guards changing shifts and researchers discussing plans. Even though his life had changed, he stayed calm and respectful. He understood that something greater than him was unfolding. Inside the underground chamber, the work continued slowly. Experts studied the symbols on the walls for hours. They compared them with known records from many regions. Some symbols shared small similarities with ancient designs, but many were completely new. This confused everyone and made the discovery even more important. One expert suggested that the chamber might have been a place of learning or storage. The careful layout and protection showed that the builders wanted the contents to survive for a long time. Another expert believed the objects were messages meant for future generations. Each idea added more mystery. More stone boxes were examined without opening them. Special tools were used to scan inside. The scans showed that each box contained different objects. Some held tools. Some held flat stone pieces. Others seemed to hold carefully arranged materials that experts could not yet explain. The government made a public announcement. They said the discovery could change how history was understood. The underground chamber proved that advanced knowledge existed much earlier than believed. The country felt proud and amazed. People followed every update closely. Amon was invited to a large meeting with officials and researchers. They thanked him for his patience and cooperation. They explained that his house would be preserved as part of the historical area. He would be supported and respected. Amon listened quietly and agreed. He did not ask for rewards or attention. He only asked that the land be treated with care. His simple request earned respect from everyone in the room. Soon, media interviews increased. Amon appeared on screens across the country. He spoke simply and honestly. He shared how he felt fear at first and then wonder. He reminded people that history could exist beneath ordinary places. People connected with his words. They saw him as a symbol of how everyday life could change without warning. Schools began teaching lessons about the discovery. Children wrote about Amon and the hole in their assignments. Meanwhile, the village itself changed. Roads were repaired. Power lines were improved. Small shops opened to support visitors. Life moved faster, but people stayed united. Amon sometimes missed the quiet days. He missed walking freely in front of his house without guards or cameras. But he also felt proud. His land had given the world something valuable. One evening, a group of young students visited the site. Amon watched them listen carefully to guides explaining the discovery. Their eyes were filled with curiosity and excitement. Seeing this made Amon smile. The underground chamber was no longer just a hidden space. It was now a bridge between the past and the present. The symbols on the walls spoke without words. They reminded people that human knowledge had deep roots. Experts worked day and night to document everything. They promised not to rush. Preservation was more important than speed. Every mark and object was treated with respect. Amon spent his evenings sitting near his door, watching the lights glow over the site. He often thought about how the builders of the chamber might have lived. They planned for the future without knowing who would find their work. As the stars filled the sky, Amon felt a sense of peace. The fear he once felt was gone. In its place was understanding. The hole was not a threat. It was a gift. The country waited eagerly for final results and deeper explanations. But one thing was already clear. This discovery had changed how people viewed their past. And it all began in front of one simple house. Months passed, and the discovery reached a new stage. The underground chamber was now fully protected and carefully studied. Every wall, symbol, and object had been recorded. Experts worked with patience, knowing that rushing could destroy important details. The hole that once caused fear had become a doorway to understanding. The government officially declared the site a National Heritage Area. A research center was built nearby, designed to blend with the land. Visitors were allowed under strict rules. Guides explained the history and importance of the discovery. People walked quietly, filled with respect and wonder. Amon's house stood close to the entrance. It remained simple and unchanged. Officials offered to move him to a new place, but Amon refused. He felt a deep connection to his home. He believed it was his duty to stay where everything began. Amon's life found a new balance. He helped guides by sharing his story with visitors. He answered questions with honesty and calm. People listened carefully, not because he spoke loudly, but because his words came from real experience. The experts released their findings to the public. They explained that the underground chamber was built by a group with advanced knowledge. The tools and records showed planning, learning, and care. This group understood stone, metal, and time in ways not previously known. The announcement caused deep discussion across the country. Historians adjusted old ideas. Teachers updated lessons. Students asked new questions. The discovery reminded everyone that history was not complete and that there was always more to learn. Amon watched these changes with quiet pride. He never thought his name would be mentioned in schools or research papers. Yet he remained humble. He believed the discovery belonged to everyone, not just him. The village also changed for the better. New opportunities appeared. Young people found work as guides, helpers, and learners. Elders shared stories and welcomed visitors. The community grew stronger. One afternoon, Amon stood near the entrance and watched a group of children walk inside with a guide. Their faces were full of excitement. Amon remembered his own fear on the first day. He smiled, knowing how much had changed. At sunset, the lights around the site turned on softly. The land felt calm again. Amon sat on a bench near his house and looked at the sky. He felt thankful. The hole had tested his courage, but it had also given him purpose. A reporter once asked Amon what he learned from all this. Amon replied simply. He said that sometimes life opens something unexpected in front of you. At first, it feels scary. But if you face it with patience and honesty, it can lead to great understanding. The reporter shared those words across the country. People found comfort in them. They saw Amon not as a hero, but as a reminder of human strength. Years later, the site continued to inspire visitors from around the world. The underground chamber remained protected, its symbols still studied. New discoveries were made slowly, each one adding to the story. Amon grew older, but he stayed active. He walked near the site every morning, greeting visitors with a gentle smile. His presence reminded everyone that this great discovery began with a simple man stepping outside his home. The hole was no longer seen as a break in the ground. It was seen as a bridge between past and present. It showed that knowledge could survive time and wait patiently to be found. On quiet evenings, when the visitors left and the lights dimmed, Amon stood alone near his house. He listened to the soft sounds of the land. He felt peace. The ground beneath his feet held history. The sky above him held the future. And Amon stood in the middle, grateful for both. The discovery that once shocked a village had changed a country. And the man who found the hole remained exactly who he always was. Simple, honest, and deeply connected to the land that spoke to the world.